Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Under the Dome podcast. I am your host, Ben Belden, and really we're coming at you with kind of the second episode of what I will call the return of the Under the Dome podcast. If you missed the first one, kind of got back into the swing of things, I explained where I've been, why I was gone, all of that stuff. But really we took kind of the pandemic year off for no particular reason. And now we're back. And so we're trying to, get this thing ramped back up again. Pleased with how first episode of the return went. But if you could continue to do those things in terms of like, comment, subscribe, leave reviews, all of that stuff, we're everywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube. Search Under the Dome podcast. Also, if you go to my Twitter at RealBBelden, that's Belden, my first initial B, Belden. You can find a link to all of the places where you can listen to the podcast and find the YouTube channel. It's really important that we get this YouTube channel going a little bit because we're going to do some live stuff on that YouTube channel. We're going to make sure that we post every podcast there in video form as well. So we want to get that YouTube channel established a little better than we have in the past and continue to do some fun stuff. So the more you do that, the more you tell friends, you subscribe, you leave reviews, the better off we're going to be because, I don't do this for the money. However, there are some pennies at least to be earned. And the more pennies you earn, the more that adds up and the more you can put back into the podcast and do some fun things. One thing I'd really love to do is get a little bit better of a camera and have a little bit better of video quality on the YouTube channel and continue to do some other things with that YouTube channel. So those are the goals moving forward. And, we're hoping that, we can continue to move forward with this. Also, these first couple episodes, you've just heard my voice. You'll hear just my voice again today. However, we will be continuing to bring on guests, some of your favorite guests from previous Under the Dome podcast episodes as well. So we're going to do that. We're going to continue to move this forward and, just have some fun with it. Because that's really the end goal, is to have fun, talk about the sport of college football and the team that we love in Notre Dame and just continue to have fun with it. So that's the goal. So find us wherever you can find us. As I said on the first episode, my goal with this podcast is really to make this an interactive podcast where, you have your voices heard as well. We get some of your opinions on whether that's with a call-in show, whether that's with a voicemail, whether that's whatever it is. We want to make sure that we have listener and involvement as well. That's another big goal of mine. So all of that can continue to happen if you can continue to support the podcast. And whatever way you do that, we really appreciate it. So that said, with this new kind of podcast format, we're going to do some more short form things, keep you for 15, 20 minutes maximum most of the time, and record more often with more frequency, but maybe with a little bit less time, and that's kind of the goal today. So it is Friday, August 6th, and we are about 4 weeks out by the time most of you will listen to this from Notre Dame football. And we're going to talk about that opener against Toledo here very briefly for some news that was made this past week. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by talking about the big news of the week, at least in my opinion. And that's something that happened on the recruiting trail, landing a commit from 6'4" wide receiver Tobias Merriweather. So, first of all, let's talk about the 2022 class for Notre Dame before we get into talking about Tobias exclusively. With Merriweather's landing at Notre Dame, that gives Notre Dame 24 hard commits for this 2022 class and, puts Notre Dame third. I guess I should say keeps Notre Dame third in the recruiting rankings behind Penn State and Alabama, if I am not mistaken. And really, though, Notre Dame is, and I'll just say this in general about the recruiting class of 2022. Notre Dame is, if you've been paying attention, just killing it on the recruiting trail. A lot of that has a lot to do with Marcus Freeman, new defensive coordinator, has really brought an edge in recruiting. Without a doubt, Notre Dame's best recruiter. Let's just put it that way. And, he hasn't coached a game at South Bend yet. We don't have that yet to judge him. But if he's as good of a coach as he is a recruiter, in the way that he's brought in some talent on the defensive side of the football, he's going to be a pretty good coach. Notre Dame is third with 20 commits. They're just behind, like I say, Penn State. Penn State's up there because they've landed 4 more commitments. They have 24 total commits, but they have the same amount of 4-star recruits as Notre Dame. They are beating them 10-6 in 3-star recruits. Alabama has, a couple 5-star recruits that has allowed them to nudge just above Notre Dame. But the bottom line is this: Notre Dame's average rating, when you look at the ratings of 24/7 Sports, their average rating per recruit is higher than both of those. So the bottom line is that Notre Dame is recruiting in this class as well as anyone is in the country. Okay, and that should be exciting for Notre Dame fans. This is one of the better classes in the Brian Kelly era. Now that we are, I think we're 12 years into the Brian Kelly regime at Notre Dame. So, that's great. And to talk about Merriweather, I guess, a little bit more individually, here's what I love about him in particular, and here's why he's what I think is a pretty needle-moving type of commitment for Notre Dame. First of all, he's a 6'4" guy, and not only is he big, not only does he have that lanky frame, but he's just so fluid in his movement. If you watch any film, highlight film, or whatever that you can find on 24/7 Sports or on YouTube or whatever, what really is very obvious is how fluid he is. He's one of those guys that can be running at full speed, stop, come back, make a catch on an underthrown ball, go up and get it over receivers with a 6'4" frame. He's a track star. You can just sort of tell by the way he runs, the way he pulls away from defenders, obviously at the high school level. He's a guy to be excited about, really. And I don't mean to overhype him or really bring up any bad memories for Notre Dame fans by saying this, but immediately when I saw his film, what I was reminded of was Justin Ross of Clemson going off for, 100 some odd yards and a couple touchdowns in the first half of the Cotton Bowl back in 2018. He's that type of player. He's that type of needle mover, that type of game changer. You just don't get the size, the speed, and the skill out of a high school guy, a 16 or 17-year-old who's probably not done growing yet, I might add, very often. You just don't see it. And with Tobias Merriweather, like I say, this is a needle mover for Notre Dame. This is first of all, he had offers from pretty much everybody in the Pac-12, along with Michigan, along with a couple other smaller schools, and he chose Notre Dame. He was only going to continue to get better and rack up those offers, and he'll continue to get them, through his senior year. But this guy is a guy that if Notre Dame does the right thing in terms of they bring him in, they get him on the field his freshman year, and they continue to develop him over the course of 3-4 years at Notre Dame. This is a guy that if I'm Tyler Buchner, quarterback of the future, arguably, I'm really excited about the landing of this guy in particular, because he's just going to be a game changer for Notre Dame. He's got the top end speed. He's got the ability to make the catch over the middle. He's got the after the catch ability. He's got everything you want out of a receiver. And I personally have always been a big fan of the taller, longer receivers. I think back to watching, Notre Dame football as a kid and watching, Maurice Stovall and even Jeff Samardzija and Michael Floyd. He's one of those types of receivers. What I will say about this, however, is even though this is a major game-changing recruit for the 2022 class, a receiver, a position of need, definitely for the Notre Dame football team. What I will say is be excited, but exercise, I guess, a little bit of caution. The Notre Dame wide receiver recruiting game has not exactly always been the best part about Notre Dame recruiting. We'll just put it that way. And when I say that, I guess what I should say, the caveat there is that Notre Dame seems to have, they've recruited well by getting some good guys, some good athletes, some guys that were worthwhile to be excited about. And they might be about to pick up, another guy in that class this particular weekend, I might add. However, since Miles Boykin and then Chase Claypool have left, we haven't really seen the next guy step up. Kevin Austin's supposed to be that guy. I think he will be. Everything you hear from his teammates and from, people who have been around him is that he's had a really great summer and that he's ready to go in that regard. But we're still very much waiting for, the next guy. And even when you talk about Miles Boykin and Chase Claypool, those guys were tantalizing prospects, but they had one real productive year, each of them at Notre Dame, in terms of being the guy. And now you see Chase Claypool, he's about the best receiver on the Steelers, and Miles Boykin is, having a successful start to his career in Baltimore as well. But like I say, the bottom line is, as well as Notre Dame's recruited at the position, which has been reasonably well, it hasn't always panned out. To throw a couple names at you of guys in previous classes, Jordan Johnson was supposed to be the next 5-star type of guy. He was a high 4-star recruit, not in Notre Dame's program anymore, transferred out. Xavier Watts, remains to be seen. Jay Brunell, another guy that was supposed to be, maybe a slot type of receiver, a game changer type of a guy, transferred out of Notre Dame's program. That was in the 2020 class. In the 2019 class, the only wide receiver they took, Cam Hart, who no longer plays offense for the Notre Dame football team. He's on the defensive side of the ball now. 2018, Micah Jones, Lawrence Keys III, Kevin Austin. Some of those guys still have an opportunity to make their mark on Notre Dame, especially Keys and Austin in particular. Keys more of a speed guy. Austin, is a 6'3" type of a guy that could be the guy for Notre Dame. But even if Austin breaks out this particular year, it's going to be another case of a guy that underperformed for a while, and then his senior season, stepped out of his shell a little bit and became that go-to guy. But at some point, Notre Dame needs to develop a guy that is not only just good for one and a half seasons, but comes to Notre Dame ready to play some football, gets on the field, at least a little bit his freshman year, makes at least a little bit of an impact, shows flashes, and then throughout the course of a couple years develops into an absolute stud. And Notre Dame gets to enjoy for more than one season, I guess, is really what I'm going for. I think Merriweather can be that guy if he's given the opportunity. But we just haven't seen a lot of wide receivers pan out the way that they were supposed to. Other names to think of, I guess, would be, Michael Young. Didn't work out for Notre Dame. Showed all kinds of promise, but obviously things didn't work out for him. Transferred to Cincinnati. Okay, Jafar Armstrong, not in Notre Dame's program anymore. Moved to a different position, is not in Notre Dame's program anymore. And I'm sure there's a couple other ones that I'm missing in terms of wide receiver. Avery Davis, came as a quarterback, moved to wide receiver, moved to defense, moved back to wide receiver. You get the point. Okay, so what we need to see Notre Dame do with these receivers that they're starting to get, if they want to start turning the corner, be very dynamic offensively. That what we need to see is them develop some of these receivers, and these receivers to stay in the stinking program. It's just plain and simple. So, while we can be excited about Merriweather, and other guys that are coming to Notre Dame, over the 2021 guys that are there now, that are about to enter into their first camp, and everybody in between, we need to see Notre Dame develop this particular position group better than they have. It's getting to be, I don't know. Saying the word ridiculous probably isn't the right way to put it, but it's getting to be a little bit discouraging and a little bit, I don't know. It just sort of seems like we're in a bad pattern, and I'm confident that Notre Dame will break that pattern. But I need to see it happen, and it starts with guys like Deion Colsey, who they've recruited, who's in this 21 class, another 6'4" type of a guy. Lorenzo Styles out of Pickerington, Ohio, who's a guy that I'm excited to see. Jaden Thomas as well. So we need to start seeing these wide receivers pan out. I just need to see one of them pan out for me to feel really good as I should about landing a guy of Tobias Merriweather's prestige, if you will. So that remains to be seen. Obviously, we're going to hear a lot about the current receivers here as camp gets started. And like I say, moving on into the future, we can be excited about this 2022 class and what's going on at Notre Dame from a recruiting standpoint. The next thing that I want to talk about, and really kind of, I guess the last serious Notre Dame topic that I want to touch on before, kind of we move on, is that Notre Dame announced that they're going to do something a little bit different from the home opener from a television standpoint, and that's that they're going to use the Peacock platform, which is a streaming platform similar to Netflix and Hulu and all those types of things, but obviously it is it's from NBC, where Notre Dame has their television contract. And here's what I'll say about this. I'm going to keep this hopefully fairly short. Notre Dame fans are not happy about this. To a certain degree, I understand. To a certain degree, there are things about this that I don't love. However, I just feel like the outrage on social media and other podcasts and all of that type of stuff, it seems a little bit, I don't know, misplaced to me. First of all, I get that there are a lot of what I would call disadvantages to this, a lot of inconveniences for this, for people who are, used to just tuning in to Notre Dame football on NBC for home games every Saturday. And, it's a very simple thing. You turn into NBC and you watch the game and the game ends and there you go. I get that there are some people that just don't love change. I get it. However, I would contend that, I would assume that the people, and I'm not particularly of the age to say this, but I would assume that, the people who were accustomed to writing on typewriters were a little bit adverse to the change of word processing on computers too. And I know that it's not a perfect example. I get that. But, as you look to, this pandemic, made streaming a big thing. Okay, streaming services, just everybody came out with their streaming services because of the pandemic. People couldn't go and go out and do this. So what did they have to do? They got to watch TV, and streaming became a big thing. It's also maybe the wave of the future in terms of, we've talked a lot, not on this podcast, but a topic of conversation has been, are we getting to a point where TV becomes completely a la carte? So if you want to watch, your favorite show on a Thursday night, you log on and you pay $1, you watch the show. You want to watch a specific sporting event, you pay $1, you watch the show. You want to watch, I can see that happening where, you get to watch ESPN all Saturday afternoon from noon until midnight. When the games are over, you pay for a chunk, you pay $5 to watch ESPN all afternoon, and then you just pay for what you use. I think that's, I don't know that how far we're off from that. But in my opinion, this is Notre Dame getting ready for something along those lines. And so if you missed it, I guess I didn't do a very good job of explaining that Notre Dame is going to, they're going to stream this game on the Peacock platform against Toledo on, I believe it's September 4th. And, unlike the blue and gold game that they streamed on Peacock, you have to have a premium Peacock membership, which is $4.99 a month. So it's going to require Notre Dame fans to download the Peacock app either on their phone, on a smart TV, on a computer, whatever, create a profile, put a credit card in, and all that. As if some of that is the biggest deal in the world. And again, like I say, I understand the criticism of streaming isn't exactly a perfected art, especially when you're streaming live things. I get that people spend a lot of money to be Notre Dame fans. They buy apparel, they buy tickets, they, you go to a Notre Dame game these days, and it's hard to not drop $500 at least on just the game of a Notre Dame football weekend, and that's sometimes even before you pay for certain things like that $500 being you go and you park and you have your refreshments and you eat and you do all that and you pay for a hotel that's an hour away and whatever the situation might be. I mean, it's hard pressed to spend less than $500 to go to Notre Dame. Let's just put it that way. And now it's just on the times that we get to sit at home. Now we have to pay $5 to stream the game, and it's not, and you have to worry about the stream. I get all that. I really do. But here, if I had to guess, there's something more to this Notre Dame streaming on Peacock for the first game. This is a trial run for something bigger, whether it's Notre Dame predicting that this is, it's going to be a la carte sports going forward, or whether it's Notre Dame essentially saying, listen, ACC, like, we don't care about your dumb streaming network, your ACC network, because we can do this on our own with NBC. We have the capabilities to do this. So quit trying. This is how we maintain independence. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Notre Dame approached NBC with this or vice versa. My guess is that NBC said, hey, let's stream a game. Let's see if we can get more Notre Dame fans subscribed to Peacock. Let's see how this goes, especially for a season opener against a MAC school. And let's just see what happens, because this is something that we need to explore for the future of Notre Dame football, for the future of streaming on TV in the first place. And so, like I say, I really see both sides of the argument. Maybe it's because I'm, young-ish, 30, a millennial, used to using technology, but I just don't see this as the big ordeal that others say it is. I mean, it's not like they're charging you a $15 pay-per-view thing for Notre Dame. It's a $5 subscription that you can then cancel if you want to. And at the end of the day, you've paid $5 to stream a Notre Dame football game, and it's a minor convenience for one weekend of the year. Personally, by the way, this is an aside, I guess, I'm kind of excited about this because I will be at a wedding on September 4th when Notre Dame opens up. And this might actually make streaming it, just logging into the Peacock app on my phone, this might make streaming it actually even a little bit easier for me. So, and to give you an idea, guys, of really how easy I think the Peacock is, I woke up this morning, thought about this podcast, thought about, all right, well, let's do a little bit of investigative reporting here. Downloaded the Peacock app on my phone, logged in, used my iPhone just to subscribe, so they're going to bill iTunes, and that's how Peacock will get their money. And I was watching a rerun of the U.S. men's national basketball team against Australia within about 2 minutes. Seriously. Now, I obviously, then I went and, I'm going to have to get that on my TV and all of that type of stuff. But I'm here to tell you that if you're a young person, this is not going to be hard. Okay, the $5 is not going to make or break you. And if you have Notre Dame fans who are older, who this is going to be a little bit more difficult for, make sure you just help them out sooner rather than later before the day of the game. Okay, get them downloaded on Peacock, get them logged in. I promise they can spring for it, and I promise everything will be okay. So, the bottom line, though, is that there's something bigger going on here. There's a reason that maybe we don't understand yet as to why Notre Dame is streaming this. There's something else in play. And so let's just take that into account, because this, like I say, this could just be the wave of the future, and Notre Dame's just way out ahead of this thing. This could be, we tried this, and now we're going to go back to try to, fix it, to try to fine-tune it, to try to do whatever we have to do so that when everybody starts going to stuff like this, or we're providing another option to consume Notre Dame football, we have the kinks worked out in a game that is, sort of inconsequential, to be honest with you. I mean, Notre Dame should win this game easily, and I don't know. So, like I say, I understand the criticisms of it, but I don't know that I understand the complete and total outrage. At the end of the day, we're going to watch Notre Dame, and everything will be okay. So, that brings me to my last point. It's really not Notre Dame football related at all, but it's something that I kind of just want to whine about a little bit. I know others of you have probably experienced this. I've experienced it more than once with Notre Dame football and just watching other sporting events. Do people who have fall weddings not understand the concept of college football? I have 2 fall weddings that I have the pleasure of attending this upcoming year. One of them will be, September 4th when Notre Dame plays Toledo. The other one is scheduled for October 2nd, which is going to be an interesting game at home against Cincinnati, a game that I flippin' wanted to go to, I might add. Okay? As I've put this with others, okay, first of all, don't have fall weddings, okay? The weather's so variable. I get that the leaves and the trees and all that is just a nice romantic setting. But you know what? Have your stinking wedding in the summer when all you're potentially interrupting is just some inconsequential 1 out of 162 baseball games or something like that. Please, okay? There's only so many weekends in a year where I get to wake up, watch people talk about football from 9 till noon. And even now, games start earlier than that for some conferences. Watch people talk about football from 9 till noon. And then just sit on my couch, eat good food, have a few refreshments, and just watch football and relax from noon until like 1 in the morning. And then I get to go to sleep, go to church, and watch football the whole next day as well. Okay? There's only so many weekends of the year that I get to do that. Okay? And there's only so many opportunities for that to be meaningful. It's my favorite feeling in the world is just, waking up, feeling the crisp air of fall, watching football, enjoying it potentially with friends. And now when you start taking those weekends away from me, those weekends where I just get to sit and watch football 24/7, I start to get a little cranky. Okay? So please, if you're listening to this and you know me, the good news, I guess, is that most of my best friends are all married already, so that's good. But if you're listening to this and you know me, don't invite me to your fall football weddings, okay? Don't have a fall football wedding if you want me to come, okay? Because I'm already roped in to 2. I can't. There's no way I can get out of these 2, and I'm just worried about it, okay? I want to watch Notre Dame football. I want to watch other inconsequential football games. I want to watch Pac-12 after dark. I want to do all these things, and you're ruining it for me. Quit ruining things for others. Yes, I know. It's your wedding. You can do what you want. I get it. But quit ruining it for me. Okay? I don't make things about me very often, but I'm going to do it for this one. So leave my Saturdays alone. Okay? Or at the very least, have a TV at the reception so that I can watch the football that I want to watch. Okay? Fair enough? Good. So if you listen this far, hopefully you enjoyed that rant. I needed to get that off my chest. But again, this went a little bit longer than expected. We're really trying to keep these between 15-20 minutes more often than not. Lots to talk about these days. Couple rants that I needed to go on. But again, it's at RealBBeldon on Twitter. If you search my name, you'll find both that Twitter and my personal one where I talk more about coaching and everyday life. But the one where I'm tweeting Notre Dame sports at RealBBeldon. It's a picture of me and my dog Rocket, who's a black lab who I named after, Notre Dame's Rocket. So anyway, make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, hit the plus sign, follow us, all that junk. You know the drill. I mentioned it all at the top. But again, like I say, I really appreciate those of you that have continued to support, even after the hiatus. And hopefully we can continue to do this, continue to grow, and do these things going forward. My intention is to be here back for the long haul and to do some live stuff. I think it'll be fun. And so I want to make it interactive. That's the intention. We're back and ready to go and continue to do those things moving forward. So really appreciate all the help and the support. And until next time, go Irish.